Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, storyteller Julia Lechner talks about always being ready to fight.
We're all sitting around in our cubicles doing our work, and one of my coworkers, Lisa, suddenly looks up from her desk and says, "My Apple AirPods are gone. Someone stole them." And immediately it was like a switch had been flipped inside of me, and the jersey came rushing back so quickly. And my coworker Lisa is able to use that geolocation tool on her computer to see that the Apple AirPods appear to be in a house that is right next to our office building. We're online, we're Googling, we're getting the person's name, information, we're quickly figuring out who this is. And then I turn to my group of coworkers in this little area of cubicles and I say, "Who's going to come with us to get Lisa's AirPods back?"
Today on the show, storyteller Julia Lechner talks about always being ready to fight. Stay close.
Hey, it's Julia Lechner, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the story last week with Erica Blumfield. Erica was on the show last week and told a really great story about waitressing in New York. It is funny. I mean, I'm telling you, if you're going to be in New York, it's a good idea to be very young, like Erica was. And it's a good idea to be flexible because New York City is a whole nother situation. So go back, you guys. Listen to the show last week with Erica Blumfield talking about waitressing in New York, but not today. Stay with me now because today I have another wonderful storyteller. Her name is Julia Lechner, and the topic that she brought to the table is always ready to fight. And that is interesting because I am not ready to fight. I am not a fighter. Julia, have you always, was it a temper? What is it?
I'm from New Jersey. That's enough.
That explains a lot. Okay, well, I can't wait to hear the story that you're bringing to the table. And, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how you just recently won Story Smash, and you were so good, Julia. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a fun, fast-paced show, and I love catching up on the episodes on the podcast too. It was incredible to be a part of. And the judging panel, I'm a fan of all of them, so it was neat to perform for them.
Oh, it was just a great show. And you did the 1 minute story, you did the 2 minute story, you did the 3 minute story. What did you find hardest to tell? Which one of those?
Oh, the 1 minute story. I come from an improv comedy background, albeit I'm a little rusty these days. So it really goes quickly getting it down to 1 minute. But I hung in there and kind of kept it with a cliffhanger ending.
Did you now? Because, you know, when you play Story Smash, you're going to do the 1 minute round and the 2 minute round for sure. Did you have different lengths, like different versions of the stories you were thinking about?
I'm pretty flexible. I'm not someone who fully scripts my stories. So I just have a sense of, do I need to pad something a little bit? But I do often have different versions of a story in my head. Do I, need a moth length, or do I need a 15-minute length for a show? And I know what details to omit or add back.
Super smart. There was a player at the last game, the one that you won. He was a comedian, great guy, Evan Kessler. But, he didn't prepare. And I'm not saying people have to prepare. You don't have to prepare. But, it kind of showed because he landed on something and then he started the story and then he took a long pause.
For dramatic effect.
And then the minute was over. And then it was over. Like he's a comedian, so he's used to having like that control on stage. You can open your mouth when you want to. The audience will stay with you. But when it's being timed, you got to move.
One thing that led me to storytelling when I first started doing shows and I was really new to it is I try to pick stories the kinds of stories that when you show up at a friend's house and you're like, you got to hear what happened to me this week. So you almost have that natural adrenaline or rush because you need to tell your friend about the bad date or the crazy coworker. So I think that kind of helps with the pacing a little bit too.
That is so true. And that's just like a comedian. Like a comedian going on stage should have to tell the audience something. It's like, I have to tell you this. I need to get this across to you. So there's a sense of urgency, which brings the audience up to your level.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I love sharing my embarrassing moments with crowds. So it's always fun to get up there.
What part of New Jersey are you from?
I'm from Southern New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Well, I'm from Pittsburgh and we used to vacation down at the Jersey Shore.
Awesome. I love the Jersey Shore. I hope to go back this summer. I've got a friend with a boardwalk fudge shop business, which is the pinnacle for Southern Jersey. So I hope to make it there.
Yeah, no kidding. I worked at Core Brothers Custard on the boardwalk. Core Brothers. There were like 4 locations right on the boardwalk, but the big one was at the Music Pier in Ocean City. Did you go to Ocean City growing up?
Oh yeah, that was my regular beach was Ocean City.
Me too.
So I know that ice cream shop.
How about how that's a dry town?
It is, but I actually grew up in a dry town as well. So I am used to, yes, I grew up in a 2 square mile town with 13 Christian churches in Southern New Jersey. And we were bordered by liquor stores and bars, but none inside of our town. So I'm used to it.
What was the name of
It's called Pittman.
I can't.
Yeah, really small place.
That is so funny. Well, it's funny when they have those laws because, of course, in Ocean City, you just go across the bridge to Margate or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you could still have liquor, but you can't buy it.
Yeah, you can still find some wine coolers if you need to. You just have to drive a couple more blocks.
Oh, that cracks me up. Anyway, I'm so thrilled you're here and I'm looking forward to hearing your story about fighting. Yeah, I'm trying to think back in my life. I never really had a fight. I mean, I have 4 older sisters and an older brother, and I used to fight with one of my sisters. Like we would tangle, but I always could beat her up. So I knew it. Like I knew it. So you're just kind of like, well, you can only go so far. When you can beat somebody up. Julia, when you were aggressive, if in fact you're not, I'm assuming you're not aggressive anymore.
I would say I specialize more so in like psychological warfare than throwing fists, but I think it's that constant push and pull of the Jersey attitude is I'm not out there fighting people every night, but I'm constantly trying to put a lid on wanting to let the Jersey attitude out and realizing it's not always appropriate or appreciated. So it's like a push and a pull.
That's real maturity on your part, Julia. Congratulations.
I still need to operate in society, but I do want to call people out constantly. So I'm just always trying to keep it down.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. To keep it on the DL so that you don't overwhelm people. Well, I'm anxious to hear this story. But before we get to your story, I wanted to remind everybody to check out My Life in 3 Songs. My Life in 3 Songs is a really passionate project of mine where I talk to comedians about the 3 songs in their life that have impacted them. Not necessarily their favorite songs, but songs that really paint a picture of the comedian and where they're from. And if you guys could please check it out. It's over there on Spotify, which is a free app. Get the Spotify app and then please check out My Life in 3 Songs, mylifein3songs.com. I would appreciate it. And if you know anybody that loves music and comedy, well, that is the show for them. My Life in 3 Songs. Thank you. All right, you guys, she's here right now. Julia Lechner. You've heard her talking. She is a Moth Grand Slam winning storyteller. And that ain't nothing, Julia, because a lot of factors have to come into play for that to happen. Am I right?
Yes, I realize I everything worked out that evening, but I was kind of obsessed for a bit with trying to win my first Moth Story Slam. You perform so much, it's just fun to set a goal if you're competitive. And I went to 4 Moth Story Slams where I was the first storyteller of the night all 4 times, which as likely know makes it very hard to win.
No good.
And then finally I got up midway through and I won right before COVID. So it took several years to get my Grand Slam turn. And it was a year ago. And I was very fortunate to be the second to last storyteller of the night and won that evening.
Yeah, so you won the Grand Slam because they have 10 moth performances, one winner from each, and then those 10 winners go on to another performance in a much bigger space. They really pack it out. And then that's the Grand Slam. So that's exciting. I won 3 nights, but I never won a Grand Slam.
Not yet.
That's very exciting. Yeah, maybe. I'm not a big fan of the moth anymore. I mean, I like the moth, but again, there's just too many factors that all the stars have to align. You know, you have to have a story for the topic they tell you. You have to get up at all. You know, your name has to be called. And if you're first or last, just forget it because nobody, if you go first, they're going to hear another story later that it's going to stick in their mind better. And if you go last, they've already established who they want to win and they'd like to leave now. So if you're last, they're just waiting for you to be done so they can talk about who they really liked.
There's a lot of factors for sure. There's definitely the personal wins of feeling like, okay, I had everyone cracking up and that feels like a win. But in terms of the moth, it's hard to put too much stock into it because there's so many elements.
Well, you can't put stock into it because the judges are nobody. The judges are just people in the audience and they know nothing. They maybe don't know anything about storytelling and then they get to judge. So it's really a bit skewed.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Unless you're listening and you're a future judge at a show I'm on, in which case I respect your input and I hope you give me a 10.
Exactly. No, it can be fabulous and it can be extremely frustrating. But nonetheless, it is a big deal that you won the Grand Slam. And then you've also been heard on the Risk Storytelling podcast, which I adore. I love Kevin Allison, who invented or created Risk. Great guy. And then you've also been performing on a team at the Upright Citizens Brigade. And that, of course, is an improv team, right?
Yes. So I've done quite a bit of improv and I actually have another show coming up with a team called Broth Bag that I'm excited to reunite with. So it's kind of how I got my start out here in LA was corporate by day and comedy by night.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, it's funny because I did Story Smash for a while at it was called IO West on Hollywood Boulevard. And I thought Story Smash would be perfect with improv kids or improv people, but it wasn't. They had a really hard time with it because it seemed like improv talents need to be told a place, a time, who are they? And then they can go. But it's not like my mom or when I was growing up or my sister, it's not as personal. Whereas comedians are all about their own person. So I thought that was interesting that the improv students who I thought would be very good at Story Smash were not very good.
That is interesting to know. And I have not dabbled into stand-up yet, though I've had a lot of people ask me. But one thing I really love about storytelling, even more so, is it is so personal. Like I like sharing things from my life and I think it resonates with people. So I'm not embarrassed to do it. So that's what I really love about doing it.
You should totally do stand-up comedy. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing stand-up. I think you totally succeed at that as well. I really do.
Thank you.
And then of interest, you're also a former college mascot. That's bananas. I've never met a college mascot. Tell me the school. Tell me the mascot.
Rowan University. And the mascot's the prof, which it used to be called the professors. It's an owl, basically. And and I even got to do it at I got called up to an NBA game once where they were playing mascot basketball for the Philadelphia 76ers mascot's birthday. So then I got to play basketball with other mascots from the tri-state area on an NBA court.
Was that the funniest thing you've ever done? Come on.
I didn't realize until I ran out on the court. I mean, I'm okay at basketball. Like my dad was a gym teacher, but in that moment I had the realization of why did I think I'd be able to play basketball dressed as an owl? I have fluffy hands, novelty size shoes I can't see. So I don't know why. So I just tried not to face plant and be played on ESPN for the rest of my life. But I did not have a good game, but it was a silly game.
Julia, that is so funny. You had a novelty shoes. And did you wear like glasses? Was it like the wise old owl?
Back in the day when my grandfather professored there, my parents went and stuff, it was a studious owl. But once I was a student, they kind of rebranded it to like a fierce looking owl. So I had like fake muscles and stuff.
That is outrageous. Honestly, really funny. You must have had a blast.
I did. And I always have an icebreaker fact. So anytime I have a meeting and they're like, what's your fun fact? Former mascot. Pretty much
forget it. That is such a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. And you guys can learn a lot more about Julia over at her website, juliaevelechner.com. You've got some beautiful pictures over there as well. juliaevelechner.com. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Julia Lechner.
There is a story in my family that's a real point of pride. It's about my mother and her three sisters beating up a group of neighborhood children in the late 1960s in suburban southern New Jersey. And the story is that one of my aunts, who was bullied at school, was targeted by some name callers that day, and she came home crying. And my grandmother told her and her three sisters to get in her car. My grandmother drove to the house of the bullying children and then told her four little girls to get out and beat the kids up, which they did. And then my grandmom drove all her daughters back home and she put dinner on the table. And this is a family story that's told with like a point of pride. I feel like it's something that would get kids kicked out of school now, possibly incarcerated. But it's told fondly by my family. Like, remember when mom had us beat the shit out of those assholes? Those were the days. So I grew up hearing this is like, this is how you show up for people in your life. This is how you show that you care. So when I moved to Los Angeles over a decade ago, I tried to hide the New Jersey in me. I quickly discovered that being direct and being from an East Coast workplace was sometimes considered too mean or too forward or too bitchy for Los Angeles. Directly addressing an error in someone's work, unheard of. Telling your boss that vaping at the office is disruptive, how dare you? Suggesting a bohemian tube top is not business casual. I'm the monster, not the other person. So it's preferred you like talk around an issue or you passively hide it. You don't direct it. So I really, after a couple jobs, I tried to like hide the New Jersey in me and just be Cali cool Julia, go with the flow. I work in a newsroom, but you know what? If you don't turn in your work on time, no big deal. Because Cali Julia, she's on California time and it doesn't even matter anymore. So I thought I had hidden all of the Jersey that I had in me, but the New Jersey can come back really quick when something happens. I took a job in an office several years ago in the Valley, and we're all sitting around in our cubicles doing our work. And one of my coworkers, Lisa, suddenly looks up from her desk and says, "My Apple AirPods are gone. Someone stole them." And immediately it was like a switch had been flipped inside of me and the Jersey came rushing back so quickly. And my coworker, Lisa, is able to use that geolocation tool on her computer to see that the Apple AirPods appear to be in a house that is right next to our office building.
Oh.
We're online, we're Googling, we're getting the person's name, information, we're quickly figuring out who this is. And then I turn to my group of coworkers in this little area of cubicles and I say, who's going to come with us to get Lisa's AirPods back with us? And the team quickly starts to divide into two groups. There's a few people initially who seem interested. They're mostly East Coast people. One coworker, Frank, I say like, "Hey, are you going to come? Are you going to come be a part of this?" And he doesn't even know what's happening yet, but he just immediately says yes, because if you're from Jersey and someone tells you to get in a car, you just do it. So he's in and he doesn't even need to know what's happening. And then a few of my West Coast coworkers are like, "Julia, what are you planning to do? Like, what are we doing it?" And I say, "Someone stole Lisa's AirPods. So we're going to go next door and handle it. We're going to assemble a crew and get her AirPods back."
So you're going to be the hero.
Yes. And they're like, "Well, what are you going to do to the person?" And I just say, "Don't worry about it." And then we spend the next 10 minutes or so trying to get like the non-confrontational colleagues to be a part of the group. I do have one coworker who's like really timid, but he's into heist movies. So he likes the idea of like being a part of a group of friends to go handle something. So we're able to, we know he can't fight, but he'll just be like a body in the car to help look intimidating.
Part of the game.
Yeah. And then we get a couple other West Coasters to agree once Lisa offers to get everyone lunch. She just announces like, I'll buy every one of you guys an a cheesesteak at Philly's Best if you come beat this guy up with me. So she's suddenly getting into it too. She's also from the Philly area. So we quickly bond over that. And she offers to go to the one cheesesteak place in Burbank, which I also appreciate that she finds that. And I respond with, I packed my lunch, but I'll stomp this bitch for free. This cannot stand. We are going to get your AirPods back. Someone can't just steal your AirPods and get away with it. And we're getting really amped up. Like I'm sweating. I'm in business casual, but this is like the first time I've really let out who I truly am at this job, this Jersey person who's ready to stand up for my coworkers and get them to go next door to rally and get her AirPods back. And then we hear this pinging sound coming out of Lisa's jacket, and she opens her little Patagonia zip on the sleeve and finds that her AirPods are actually in her jacket. And it turns out she has a husband who works at Apple. And I guess the geolocation thing is not super exact. So it looked like it was next to the office building, but actually they were in the office building the whole time. And she had just misplaced her AirPods. And everyone kind of turns back to their cubicles and they're laughing. And Lisa's like, oh, that was so silly, but I'll still get everyone a cheesesteak for lunch if you want. And she starts putting in the lunch order. And I just turn back to my desk, like sitting and stewing, that I was going to go beat this person up to like show my coworker that I was ready to rally for her, just like my grandmom and my aunts and my mom had done for their sister. But then, like a runny bottle of spray tanner on a hot summer's day, once the jersey's out, it's hard to bottle it back up. So I just had to sit there and go back to work and pretend like I didn't just try and get a group of 7 people to beat someone up on their front lawn that day.
You created this entire narrative about where they were, who lived over there, what you're going to do. And so was everybody going to get out of the car? Was that the plan?
The plan was to try and get everyone out, and we were going to go to the front door and intimidate this person to get her AirPods back. And my initial thing was like, oh, she didn't misplace them. It means they were stolen. It's a thief, and we need to go deal with the situation.
Yeah, you jumped so fast. You jumped so fast to, we're going to go beat somebody up. Did anybody in the office say to you like, boy, Julia, you were really ramped up?
Initially, I think they were surprised, but because they hadn't seen me in this way, they were like, well, clearly this must mean something. Like Julia's ready to go do this. So it must mean that it's actually an issue. And they decided to be a part of it. I don't know how many of them would have actually gone to the front door with me once we got there, but we did manage to get a couple that were going to get in the car to go deal with the situation.
You could get hurt, man. You got to be careful when you jump ahead like that.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, with trying to bottle up the jersey, it was just another piece of evidence of like, okay, you really need to not share this part of your life with people. Like, try and be zen, meditate.
Yeah, bring more California in, get the jersey out kind of thing. Have you ever done that in any other sort of area in your life? Like, I was just thinking, like, when I was pregnant with my baby, I was dead set on getting speed bumps put on my road because I'm like, I'm going to be out there with a stroller and people are flying by in cars and fuck that, man. So I got like everybody on the street to sign this petition to get speed bumps. But a lot of people wouldn't sign it because they said the speed bumps slow down the ambulances. And I would be like, you mean the ambulance that's coming for you after you got hit by a car? I was so mad, but I did get speed bumps put on that road.
I think mine are mostly to defend the people I care about. So it's like if a friend's at a party and she's like, this other person's talking to the guy I like, and it's like, let's go over there and handle it, like that kind of thing, to stand up for people. But now as an adult who works in, offices and what have you, I guess the way it manifests is if someone's bothering a coworker, I'm like, CC me on that email. Bring me in the meeting. I'll just sit there and look intimidating. We'll handle it.
Well, it also reminds me a little bit of being here in LA and having friends that are famous, like for real, famous friends. And somebody starts heading toward them. Like I'll turn my body in toward the person to try to protect them, like instinctively, because you can see, there's fame and then there's people that aren't fame or whatever. And you can see when people see a star like Wendy McClendon-Covey or something, and they don't even know what to do with themselves because that's a star right there. And I'll see them start coming in, and then I'll just kind of close off to Wendy. So it's a protection I think you do for your friends.
Yeah, that's one way to show that I care. That's a Jersey love language, I think. It's just like throwing down for the people you care about.
And how long have you been in LA?
I think 12 years now. So over a decade.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
that's a long time. So you do start, the other thing that's different if you've lived here in LA for a while is, to keep your eyes out, your ears are open. Like we're all kind of like scanning the area at all times, mostly for famous people. But in terms of like something going down, or whatever. And so then you can use those skills if somebody's with you that isn't quite so slick.
Yeah, there seems to just be a constant friction within me. And I did have a friend point this out once because the Jersey does seem to come up in my stories a bit, even though I've been out here for a decade. And she pointed out, like, you always, you seem like such a nice person. And then you'll have these stories where midway through there's some sort of like conflict that arises and you turn into this Jersey over the top person. And I'm like, yes, that's just bubbling up inside of me every day that I'm trying to keep it cool. At any moment could be
for a fight.
Yeah.
How's your marriage?
It's great. But, he's from the Midwest. He's really sweet and wonderful and love it. And so I bring the Jersey part of the relationship.
Yeah. Has he seen that side of you?
Definitely in my comedy. It hasn't come up too much in my personal life because, again, like he helps, keep me calm. He's a bit more level-headed with that. So I don't need to go out on the streets and bring up the Jersey as much.
I met him, Johnny. Nice guy. Great guy.
I know. He's so sweet. And he loves Story Smash. He's a huge fan of the cookies. So he had a blast at the show.
Yay. Yeah, I've really perfected those chocolate chip cookies because my niece is a baker in Pittsburgh. My niece owns a bakery and it's her recipe. Boy, oh boy, if you ever been in a bakery, like backstage a bakery, like behind the scenes?
I have not. I don't know if I could handle it.
That's something to see. It's a lot of fun. Like my niece, it'll be like she'll be making these chocolate chip cookies and she'll have to put in 90 sticks of butter. So just start unwrapping the butter. It's just awesome.
That always ends up being the ingredient. But yeah, he is a bit of a sweet too. So he's excited for those. And one thing that's great about him, marrying someone who does storytelling and improv and what have you, he is very supportive. And there's never been once or twice I've given him the heads up on a story. My Grand Slam story actually involves him as well. And it's kind of an intimate piece of information I'm sharing on stage. And he immediately gave his blessing and was like, yeah, you can always share anything you want on stage. That's totally fine. So it's nice to, have someone so supportive and never worried about sharing those kinds of things with others.
Definitely. Yay, Johnny Lechner. I love it. That's awesome. That's great. And you've gotten really active here in the Los Angeles storytelling community, which has definitely grown, hasn't it?
It has quite a bit. And I think like a lot of people, I did a couple virtual shows during, the years then we all stayed inside. And I honestly wondered a bit like, am I still funny? Can I write new stuff once things reopen? And I did feel a bit of writer's block. And honestly, the Grand Slam last year and doing a few more shows really helped me get back out there because it was a story about something that had happened to us during COVID, and it just like helped me start writing again. So getting out to the storytelling shows did make me feel funny and creative again after being inside for a few years and thinking like, I don't know if I have anything new to share. I don't know if I'm funny.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, storytelling, like comedy or music or anything else, it's an art. So it kind of ebbs and flows, and you got to strike while the iron is hot. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm excited to have some more shows coming up and more life experiences to talk about on stage.
Yay. You guys, don't forget to check out JuliaEveLechner.com. Is that your middle name, Eve?
It is, yes.
A pretty name. That's a very pretty name. JuliaEveLechner.com. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up. You can also head over to StoryworthyPodcast.com, and there you join my mailing list. There's a little pop-up thing that comes up. You click on that, and then I'm going to email you about once a month. Not a lot, because I know your time is precious, and so is mine. Anyway, you guys, thank you again so much for tuning in to Storyworthy. If it wasn't for the fans out there, this would not be happening. So thank you again to everybody out there, especially my mega fans like Dave Bichek and Porfirio and Tracy Varana. And I've got some great fans out there. So thank you again so much for listening to Storyworthy week after week. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Julia Lechner. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.